If you have ever managed to watch a Degu, then it is unlikely that you could remain indifferent to such a cute creature that looks like a very nimble squirrel. Their cheerful disposition, large amount of energy, and cute antics will be able to melt the heart of even the most inveterate skeptic. These animals have an intractable character, but they are also endowed with good mental capabilities. They are easily trained and can become a good and faithful friend to their owner. However, there are many nuances that are worth remembering when acquiring such an extravagant animal. Degu, or Chilean squirrel, is a South American herbivore rodent native to Chile. For a long time, these furry animals were considered pests of agricultural land, as they feed on plantations cultivated by humans. However, soon, they began to benefit people, so they began to breed them in the laboratory when they learned that glucose tolerance was impaired in the animal's body, which made it possible to conduct research on diabetes mellitus. Degus also help in research on a number of other serious diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease. Soon, these cute rodents began to be bred as pets. Pros of keeping Degus at home. Before choosing a Degu as a new pet, you should carefully consider its characteristics and study how this animal can affect the lives of the owners. Pros of keeping Degus. The animal is extremely unpretentious in basic care. It is enough to feed him a couple of times a day, usually morning and evening, change the water, and clean the cage, which the beast itself sometimes copes with. Nutrition for such an exotic animal is relatively simple and can be found in every pet store: hay, grass pellets, dried branches, and fruits. In addition, some of the food for the animal can be made independently, for example, by drying an apple or a pear. Degu is a godsend for people with allergies. They do not have an unpleasant odor and their wool is not an allergen. If you accidentally detect a foreign smell, it will most likely indicate that the animal has some kind of disease and the intervention of a specialist will already be required here. Among all rodent species, Degus have the most developed intelligence. Despite the fact that some specimens have a difficult disposition, this does not prevent them from mastering the simplest commands and succumbing to training. The main thing in this matter is to be patient and find an approach to the baby. With quality nutrition and proper animal care, Degus can please their owners with longevity and live up to 10 to 15 years, while in the wild they rarely live up to 1 year. When choosing between a chinchilla and a Degu, it should be remembered that the former are awake mainly at night, while the latter prefer to sleep at this time of day. Therefore, if you are not a fan of the nocturnal lifestyle, then Degus will definitely suit you. Being a steppe animal, this animal consumes relatively little fluid and produces little excretion. Rodents prefer dry food, so their feces are easily removed with a regular dry cloth or vacuum cleaner. The animal does not require water procedures to maintain hygiene. Specialized volcanic sand, which is also sold at any pet store, a couple of times a week will be enough for this. If you are going to breed animals at home, then this is quite easy to do, since a female Degu can litter up to 3 times a year. Cons of keeping a Degu as a pet. As we can see, there are a lot of advantages to having a Chilean squirrel as a pet. However, there are still some downsides. Consider the main ones. Like all rodents, the Degu has constantly growing teeth, which she needs to grind down from time to time. Therefore, any items that fall into the attention of this animal are at risk of being gnawed and spoiled. This must be remembered when releasing the animal to walk around the room. In addition, specialized mineral stones and various tree branches should always be present in the cage so that the animal has the opportunity to grind down its teeth. This animal has a fairly large habitat in nature, so, at home, it requires a relatively roomy cage, which will have many vertical levels so that the animal can easily jump from shelf to shelf. A small proportion of pet stores can boast of having high-quality large Degu cages, yes, and they are always an order of magnitude higher than usual. A cage for rabbits or guinea pigs will not work in this case, so before you bring a new pet into the house, you should be seriously puzzled by finding the right housing. Also, the rodent will be happy with various devices, such as a running wheel, shelves, a hammock, etc. No matter how smart these cute animals are, but, unfortunately, you are unlikely to be able to accustom them to the tray. When the animal walks around the apartment, you will have to carefully clean up after it. In addition, rodents are very fond of hiding their stocks of sweets in secluded places. Do not be surprised if you suddenly find a few nuts or pieces of dried apples on a sofa or closet. Degu refers to animals with poor digestion and a tendency to have diabetes. Therefore, when choosing a feed, you should carefully study its composition, and for this, you need to study in advance which ingredient will benefit and which one can seriously harm the health of the animal. A very young baby, who has not yet been tamed, can be frightened by extraneous sounds or other pets. When trying to pick up, a Degu can defend itself and seriously bite the owner. Therefore, you should be patient and gain the trust of the animal gradually before picking it up. It is also not recommended to grab the animal by the tail. Before you start a rodent, you should make sure that there are specialists in your city or its environs who can cure the animal in case of its illness. However, even despite the presence of doctors, not all regions have medical equipment suitable for treatment or complex manipulations. Degus are extremely heat tolerant. In the wild, the animal usually waits out for her in cool areas or minks, while in the apartment she has practically nowhere to hide from high temperatures. The purchase of a split system for the premises is guaranteed to solve this problem. The presence of other pets in the house, especially cats and dogs, will complicate the adaptation of the rodent to new conditions. There is a very small percentage of likelihood that animals will get along with each other. Therefore, it is recommended to distinguish between their communication in different rooms and monitor the safety of the rodent, not leaving it alone with other animals, even if the baby is in its cage. If you want to make a new friend for your child, make sure that he is already sufficiently aware of how carefully it is necessary to approach this animal, because the success of domestication and the health of the animal will depend on this. Degu is not suitable as a pet for very young children, recommended age from 7 years old. Conclusions and recommendations. If you have familiarized yourself with all the nuances and studied all the necessary information for caring for a new pet, then you will not have any difficulties interacting with such an unusual animal. The main recommendations come down to 3 rules. They will help you better understand the nature of the animal and make communication with him much easier and more enjoyable. Create good living conditions for the rodent, a spacious cage with many vertical levels and entertainment, branches, hammocks, houses, clear water, high quality and complete food, hay, pellets, dried fruits, mineral stones, dry tree branches. Keep the animal's home and the room where the walks take place clean. Try to clean the cage in time and remove all dangerous objects in the room, which can get into the tenacious paws of a rodent. Be patient, do not expect the animal to go into its own hands in a couple of weeks, some animals need much more time for this. Degus are very characteristic animals that require special care and a lot of attention. They do not like to be left alone for a long time and are always happy to see their owner, who was able to earn the trust and sympathy of the beast. A new pet will be able to become a family favorite, and worries about it will not be a burden. Are you thinking about getting a Degu? Let us know what you decide in the comments below. And if you know someone who's thinking about getting a Degu, please share this with them. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Otherwise, have a great day. Thanks for watching.